All right. Sara Hand, could you join me up front?
And let me move that.
Sara Hand, her motto is think big, keep it simple, and make it happen. And if there's ever a make it happen individual, this girl right here can make things happen. Sara Hand specializing in developing creative strategies for business growth with a strong focus on implementation. I'm going to pause right here. Do you know the number one reason small business owners don't do as good as they could?
Lack of plan.
Lack of plan, even more. Some of them have plans, but they don't implement. I call it FTI, failure to implement. We all know what we should be doing, we just don't do it. This girl right here can help you implement. So with a unique combination of skills and experience from the public and private sector and across the variety of industries and in leadership roles for several businesses, technology, and funding organizations, businesses look to Sara for a unique perspective and valuable connections. That unique perspective has helped clients build sustainable, scalable enterprises, quadruple sales, and in a matter of months, open an additional location and win Business of the Year. Please make welcome Sara Hand.
Wow, I'm so glad to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? Cool, because for some of you, I have been involved with the S Group for a long time. There was a time when, as far as entrepreneur type support groups, this was it. There were no other luncheons, were there, John? This was it. Now it's so exciting because there's a lot of competition. But the cool thing is that's because we live in a place that has a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem. And there's a whole lot of things going on. So I have no idea what we're going to talk about today because what we're going to talk about is what's really important to you. So in contrast to me coming in and saying, oh, I know in business that this is what you're dealing with, what we're going to do is we're going to, with my Vanna here, Jackie, we're going to begin to gather some of the ideas and the challenges that you have, and we're going to talk about those. My partner Stan and I have a co-worked incubation space. And I've been working, in this space of helping businesses for a long time. So what we're looking for your most challenging opportunities that you face as a business owner. Okay, go ahead, Clayton.
I've seen my first one. I've talked about this for years. My exit strategy is probably about 10 or 12 years for the business. And we've actually hired a guy to come in as a general manager. And he's been with me for the past year. It's been terrific. I've had a little time off. The guy there that's very comfortable, gets it. And he took our system and he enacted, not to exactly the way I wanted to do it, but he's doing a great job. He just went to work for an IT company, got a huge offer here. So I'm losing that guy. So my struggle now is really with this catering. I've been trying to hire a catering person for the longest time, and I want it to be incentive-based, not salary-based, because I just don't think it's got to be incentive-based. How do I find that?
So we have Clayton needs to hire great help, and he wants a pay-for-performance component in there so that people are incentivized to be able to work. So that's hiring great help. That's a challenge, isn't it? Anybody else? I want, yes, Dan. Future trends. Yes, most people build for where the market is. If life cycle of a product is only 18 months, and that's like long term. Has anybody ever heard this before? If life cycle is only 18 months and you build for where the market is now, by the time you've developed it, maybe you're already too late. So future trends, cool. Somebody else? Yes.
How do you break people out of old patterns of thinking and new paradigms?
Oh, wow. Old patterns of thinking and new paradigms. How do we change the way people think? I love that. I say to clients and groups when I speak, if I can change the way you think, it will change the way you behave even before you master the skill sets to fully implement that. But it's a challenge when you just said new paradigms. The problem with that term paradigm is that means you have no idea what I'm talking about. You can't relate to anything. This is a new paradigm. Forget everything. And I think for me, and we'll talk about this more, some of helping people change is helping them figure out how what you want can be leveraged from where they are, so it's not quite as scary. Okay, another challenge. Al's going to walk around and get your questions on video. To Jackie.
There's an extra one.
Okay, another question.
And hang on until you get the mic because we want to record it.
Okay. Nobody has any problems with cash flow. Nobody has any challenges with sales. No other problems. Everybody else is really good. Yes.
Hang on. Hang on.
Just basic fear of hiring new people that you want to trust with things that you have had control with for years.
Oh, control issues and
Control
trust.
issues.
Yes. Okay. It's hard to grow if you're the one who, if you make it so you can't deal with anybody else. Okay. Any other ones? No technology challenges. No.
Life cycle, too.
Okay. Go ahead, Al, and then back to you, Dan.
Since you're really good at this and you've got a lot of contacts in the government, how does a company, local company, get together with the state, the county, the city, federal? You're pretty plugged into that. Maybe you could talk about that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, like how do you not leave incentive money on the table? Yes, that's a good one. Go ahead. And Dan, you had you said
Life cycles.
life cycle. Life cycle, explain what you mean by life cycle.
Well, I mean, give you an example. The computer industry is one. You know, I mean, back when I was selling them in 88, 89, you could make $2,000, $3,000 a system, and now you're lucky to make $20 a system if you're selling it. So that goes along with future trends.
Life cycle prediction. Okay, where's the money at? Okay, cool. Anybody else have anything? Yes.
Communication. We're doing business internationally, and we're developing a relationship with people in Brazil.
Okay.
They think differently than we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you transfer across cultures? I bet have you talked about Dan and what he does in China before? And cool. Yes.
One of the really big industry problems, and it's a problem for every physician, every practice, every hospital, is the coding system for healthcare is going to change in October. It's called ICD-10. It's going to cost the country billions of dollars. It's going to bankrupt some practices. We advise people to have 40% of their cash flow in a letter of credit because their payments are going to slow down so fast. It's a huge change, and it affects every practice and everybody billing in medicine. It's a big deal.
So we'll, ooh, wow, that changed there. So we'll add a little bit about what are those things that are happening that affect us, like changes in regulations. Anything else?
How to get people aware of your company and traffic to your website.
Okay, brand awareness and online traffic. Cool. Yes, Andre.
How about the impact of technology on existing businesses?
Okay.
Or existing ways of doing business?
Okay, cool. Any other last ones here? Yes.
Yeah, government regulations that affected me twice. Once with Ronald Reagan when he decided to put a chip embargo on computer chips, and it drove the chips up from 90 cents a chip to $15 a chip, which added an extra $300 to your cost. And then we used to import ephedra, mahuang, and somebody died of drinking a sports drink with a heart attack. One person, Big Pharma kills 100,000 people a year, but you had one person on the nutraceutical end, and they made it a controlled substance and basically destroyed the whole business because people couldn't deal with it, So you got to watch out for government regulations that may come up and sneak up and bite you from behind and wreck your business.
Absolutely. So we have got a lot of things here on the table. And so let me see. Exit needs, people, motivated patterns, habits, future trends. Yes. Oh, yes, Saul has one.
How do you plan for the speed of the rate of change, the increasing speed of rate of change.
Okay, cool. We're going to start with change trends, predicting the future, and rate of change. So I'll tell you, I just got invited to go to the 2015 Innovation Summit at Harvard for enabling innovation economies, and it's all about predicting the future. And my partner and I run a leadership conference called 3.0 Leaders. And it's funny, about 2 years ago, we've had the Chief Innovation Officer from Dell for the last 3 years here speaking, and as they've gone through some of their changes. And he just did a keynote this year for us on predicting the future. And one of the fun things is 2 years ago, Jim said when we changed our title to 3.0, is he said, most of the world is just figuring out there's a 2. They don't even know that 3 exists. So I'm going to explain to you, just in case there's somebody here who doesn't know what 3.0 is, and that's how we're going to talk about change and lead into these. In the world, there was this place where we went online and we looked at the information. It was a static, read-only world, and that was the world of 1.0. And then some phenomenal things happened, like WordPress. WordPress transformed the opportunities for small business owners with this content management. And so we then began Facebook. We had the ability to interact with information, and that was the world of 2.0. And now, we live in a world of 3.0, which means that even though Saul, now I don't know what type of phone he has, but maybe he's got so let me pick Andre. So I have an idea that Andre has a smartphone, and when Andre moves, when he leaves this room, that phone will continue to ping the tower, and that phone is sending back data on Andre. Right now, he's not moving. When he gets in his car, even if he isn't logged on to some sort of solution, people are able to gather information from him even without him participating. The world of 3.0, you don't have to go in and log in a profile. Now there's places where you log in someplace and they pull and aggregate information from all different types of places. And it's all pulled into one piece. If we thought, did anybody ever read Future Shock by Alvin Toffler? Oh my gosh. And we thought, oh, how is that ever going to happen? With are you familiar with the term Internet of Things? Okay. Now they're beginning to refer to it as the web of everything. So with everything connected, in some industry sectors, the amount of data being gathered about in that sector is doubling every 12 to 18 months. Within the next couple of years, the amount of data collected about human beings in general will double less than every 24 hours. In less than 24 hours, the mass amount of data that's being gathered about you, about everybody on the planet, will double. Nobody was ever prepared for this. Nobody was ever prepared for this. So actually, that's one of the topics that we're going to have at Harvard, and we've been researching with people for the last couple of years. So one of the things I'm going to say about change is that because everything is connected, we can no longer build your business, no longer live your life in isolation. So when I was in high school, there was this movie called Rollover. Did anybody ever see it? Chris Christopherson, Jane Fonda. That's how old it is. Anyway, then there was another movie that came out a couple of years later with Robert Redford called Sneakers. Did anybody see that? Yes. So Rollover was this movie, and I remember seeing this in high school, you know, because you have these points of things that affect you. And what was interesting is there's a financial crisis in one country, and it affects the whole world. People thought, wow, that's kind of forward thinking. Yes, the butterfly effect. In today's world, if the New York Stock Exchange completely goes down, is everybody affected? If there's a crisis in China, If there's a crisis, I mean, now there's some currencies that are a little bit more isolated, and you know, Greece tanking does have effect on different places, but it's not going to affect us quite the same. Because that currency is a little bit more isolated. But overall, we are all in this together. And so what we found, and we started building this ecosystem out a couple of years ago, and John would go, "What's Bar Camp?" So if you haven't heard of it, my partner and I, along with 2 other co-founders, built our Bar Camp Sarasota, became Bar Camp Sarasota, Bradenton, and Da Vinci's Festival. It's the largest business and technology network in the state. And it's just people that are connected together. There's no membership. And John would say, "What's Bar Camp?" It's a community of people. And the whole thing is that all of us are in this together. And as we built that out, what we found is that in the center of everything was education. That's why this group still works. This is about education and support. I know because you know we're on the same page. It's all about education. In today's world, it's lifelong education, because if you don't stay with it, pretty soon, you're not going to be able to make a phone call. Right. Well, Saul needs some coaching so that next year, when his model becomes obsolete, he can still call home. So this whole thing, everything is changing so quickly. So very key is that with that amount of information being thrown at us, none of us can know all the answers. So it's really important that we speak to people across business, technology, funding, centered around education, understanding the unique demographics of where you live. Because nobody can do this on their own. Did you have a...
What you're getting to is the difference between something being complicated and something being complex. Now, the difference is this. My automobile is complicated. There's a lot of different moving parts together. But my engine is not going to change its size because the fuel pump and windshield wiper decide it's a good idea. All right, we're heading toward the complexity, and I think we're already there. An example would be about 2 years ago, some hedge fund manager in France decided to short the Thai baht, and 3 days later, the Indonesian stock market collapsed. So, you know, finding those connections is pretty hard, but that's complexity, and that's what we're into now.
So the secret that we see is really it's about collaboration across sectors, which then goes back to this thing about trust and defining that. So we actually work with Purdue Center for Regional Development with a process called strategic doing. And yes, that's awesome, isn't it, Saul? And you want to know what strategic doing helps bring simple rules to complex challenges. It works in everyday workflow, and it works in mass collaborations in things that nobody gets anything done. And it's all about implementation. And it works with young people and old people. Saul worked with us, and Jackie worked with us in a workshop that we did with Booker High last year. We just did a workshop with a number of not-for-profits. We'll be doing one with the Manatee County School Board. So strategic doing asks 4 questions. It asks 4 questions, but it starts first with the assets that are present. Because when we talk about doing, when we talk about Dave, when he talks about implementation, lots of people have strategic plans. Jackie, mark down fear, so I come back to that, and don't forget it. So a lot of people have strategic plans. In fact, in our government, a lot of times they'll spend several $100,000 and several years to develop a plan, and they're like, oh, yay, look what we got. We have a plan. And they put it on the shelf and it collects dust. Wouldn't you like some of those resources for your small business? The project that we have, our co-work to incubation space, I'll tell you that this was a number of years ago before leadership changes, because in government, when leadership changes, everything changes. But in 2009, the Sarasota EDC and then the Manatee County EDC that was within the Manatee Chamber all changed. It's now called the Bradenton Area EDC. And the Florida High Tech Corridor, they spent $250,000 on research, feasibility, and the development of a business plan for an incubator. It was finished in April of 2011. Mark Huey came into office in May of 2011 as the new head of the EDC. Sharon Hillstrom, the Manatee EDC was separating from the chamber and then would enter a rebrand and be called the Bradenton Area EDC. So all this leadership change. What do you think happened with that investment of $250,000? It was sitting on the shelf. Sitting on the shelf. I mean, if you took that even into micro loans, you could do a lot. Could you do a lot with $250,000 in helping startups? Absolutely. So my partner and I picked that up a couple of years ago. We looked at that research and feasibility, began this project, which is now Station to Innovation. We'll have our grand opening on October 2nd, and then validated what was true, what was different, and what changes needed to be made. So how do we support entrepreneurs? So that's the role of strategic planning. The note on fear is what we've seen in community groups is in dealing with change is in the old world, you were not rewarded when you made mistakes. You had a 5-year strategic plan, you had a goal, and maybe every 6 months you might have some kind of measurement, and at the end of the year they do a performance evaluation. And so if you made a mistake, by the time they found out that there was a mistake made, it was cumulative, and it was big. And you could lose your job. In today's world, everything is changing. Information is coming at us so fast. Things are changing. In today's world, we have this term agile. Has anybody heard that term agile before? Agile, so in sports, that means that you're flexible. In software development, that means that you're doing frequent releases. You're doing updates frequently. Agile in today's world means that, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. Has anybody ever heard that an airplane is off course most of the time? So most of the time, and so what happens is the pilot is, or airplane ships, vehicles that move like that are navigated. So they're going along this way, and there's factors that influence them, tides, winds, that push them off. And they continue to adjust to stay on track. That's today's world. So today's world, what we want to find out is we want you to test every day. Pay attention every day. Every time you do your 30-second commercial, when I tell Saul what I do, does he get it? Oh, he didn't. Is that Saul or is that me? Let me check. I'm going to try it over here. Did he get it? Is that him or is that me? Do I need to make adjustments? Okay, so I'm going to make adjustments. I'm going to try that with John. Ah, John got it. Is it that John got it or am I different? I'm measuring, evaluating. If you pay attention and you measure frequently, like Dave was saying, have metrics, goals that you're working towards. When you make mistakes, you go, okay, let me make an adjustment. And like the airplane and like the ship, you stay the course, not because you're not going off course, but because you're continuing to make adjustments. That's part of the secret of dealing with change. Now, the thing about fear is, we were on this committee for a large community project. Oh my gosh, and it was like, let's start another subcommittee so that we can measure this, so that we can come back to this committee, and then nothing was happening. And we'd been on this committee for about a year, and it was only an act of God that I was able to do that, because somebody asked me to help them, because I have a hard time showing up and not getting anything done. And then I saw it. I saw the person who was leading the group, and I realized the reason we couldn't get anything done is because he was afraid. And it goes back to that way that we used to measure. If he made a mistake with this committee or one of the people, what if they worked on something and it didn't work? Well, in today's world, if it doesn't work, it's like a Google AdWord campaign. You throw some stuff out, you look at it, you go, oh, that one didn't work. Take it off. I'm not paying for that one anymore. I mean, does anybody do that? Do you look at stuff and it doesn't work and you just change? Is that kind of normal? Now, this other part about fear and managing information is, and And what I see, and there's actually a lady who, she just moved, she was at Columbia University, and there's 3 different professors, and they did this research. And so it's all about the fact that you remember things differently. Okay? And the reason is, now, has anybody ever heard that, like, when you get divorced or something like that happens, somebody dies, that it's Al. It's devastating, because what happens when you're in a relationship with somebody, you know, this person's in charge of the technology, this person's in charge of the cooking. You define roles. You define roles. Now, what happens is that when you have a separation through death, divorce, or something like that, like half your brain's gone, because that person in that relationship had a role and a responsibility. So what happens in the way we remember is that information used to be hard to come by. How long do I have?
I just want to make sure you get to the other people. We've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, cool. So what used to happen is information was hard to come by. Okay, and so those of us who are a little older, we spent maybe some hours in the library doing research, right? Right. There are these things called microfiche and card catalogs, and our parents had recipe boxes. People don't have recipe boxes now; they Pinterest. You know, my daughter asked my partner. She said, "What was your favorite cookie growing up?" And he goes, "Oh, it was this chocolate oatmeal no-bake thing, right, that my mom used to make. It was so good." And she goes, "Great. Our youth group is going to make cookies for an old folks' home." Anyway, so we didn't know where the recipe was, so we went on Pinterest, and we found like 10 different versions. You don't have to have a recipe box unless it's a recipe that's specific to your family. Okay? So how many people kept newspaper articles? How many? Yes. How many people? Your parents, they had stacks and little files of all these different papers. And so some of the reason that young people are not overwhelmed by information is because information is readily accessible. They're not afraid that they can't find it. Google is their best friend. And so when they see all those emails and stuff coming, and you wonder, you think they're ignoring you. Not at all. They're selective. All this information is coming at them, and so they don't know, they don't have to be an expert in everything. They just need to know how to find the information they need when they need it, so they're not overwhelmed or scared. Those are key ingredients to managing change, predicting the future, and understanding how to promote your business. Because what's going to happen with all these masses of information? In predicting the future, we talk about weak signals, emerging markets. I'll say to fast track on that, on our 3.0 Leaders site, 3-leaders.com. I have video content, and Jim Steichler talks about the innovation process and how do you foster innovation and what are the weak signals. And it comes through some research that Dell and Intel have done. And so I could repeat it all for you, but I just go to the video, and it's, I don't know, like maybe 40 minutes. It's really good stuff. But part of it is, how do you manage information? How do you promote your business? For those people here, I would say the important thing is understand what makes you uniquely valuable and different. And then sometimes your prospects don't know that they're looking for you. Be a hunter. Where do your prospects go? Where are they at? And show up and fish in the pools that they're at. Let me see, what else do we have?
Let's address Clayton's,
Clayton's.
about finding the help.
Finding the help. Okay. And that ties into not being afraid and letting things go. Clearly defined process. Now, I'll tell you that sometimes it's counterintuitive. I had a client, and we thought that we wanted somebody who was an aggressive go-getter to build their business. But what we found is when we hired an aggressive go-getter to build their business, that person walked off with part of their business. You know, you can do non-competes and all that kind of stuff. And but do you want to go fight for that or whatever? So what we realized for her business is that what she really wanted is she wanted somebody with a servant's heart. She wanted somebody who was completely service-oriented, who wasn't focused on going out and building the business in this way, but was going to be there day in and day out and just completely take care of her clients' needs. So I'd say in hiring somebody, in Michael Gerber and E-Myth, if you haven't read that, do. It's painful.
Yeah.
Because what you have to look for are what are the key components. And then that part about trust, what we learned in strategic doing is that trust is built through small processes, small things. So the challenge is we give people either way too much, too soon, before we've built that trust and they've proved it, or we don't give them enough autonomy to be able to do things. I think that lots of people hire great people and turn them into crummy employees. Have you ever been in a job, you were hired by somebody, and you knew you went in really well and they turned you into a crummy employee with a bad attitude? So I would say that's your focus. Understand what are the key components. Do you want somebody to go out and do this? And then set them up to win. Make sure, a lot of people want to hire, the problem with incentivizing, and I've heard this, people are like, I just need to hire a salesperson. And they think that a salesperson is a magic bullet. And I'm like, and they expect to hire a salesperson, hire them commission only, not pay them for, then after they close the sale, there's a week to 2 weeks before they get paid. So they're expecting somebody to foot the cost for their business for 2.5 months before they get their first paycheck. I'll tell you, having done training as a Sandler sales trainer and work with people who make 6 figures plus, none of my friends would work for you if somebody were hiring them for that. Because they would expect for the company to have some skin in the game. What I see with people who only want to do an incentivized professional, people have cash flow needs. And so what happens is you'll find somebody who'll sign up to work as a market rep for 5 different companies, and they really won't do anything for anybody. So I'd say you have that, how do you help them have some cash flow so that they can cover the cost of their gas and some of those things that they need while they build a pipeline, and then have a pay-for-performance model that can scale. So you have a minimum place and you have tiers. But the truth is that if you read the research, there's a place where people don't work just for money. Mm-hmm. You really have to understand what is that person's motivation. So there's a place for money in the equation and incentives, but then there's a whole other understanding for what really makes somebody want to succeed. Is it autonomy? Is it recognition? I have a lot of people who work for me for free, and they do so because she does. Actually, I will tell you, Jackie volunteers for me, and she sponsors. She writes checks. Jackie is our hero sponsor. And in community work, where you're doing events for the public that are free, everybody should have a hero sponsor like Jackie. And she rides in on a white horse and drops off a check and says, here, the food at the after party is on me. And she brings, that's huge. That's huge. Everybody, but the reason is that I recognize Jackie, I appreciate her. So if it was all about money, that wouldn't be enough. So I think I'm out of time.
I want to leave some time for questions, so
Yes.
Go ahead, Gary.
That was the biggest thing I wanted to know was why does she do it? She's not just because she knows who you are. There is a deeper level because she is forwarding herself into your future. And there's a reason there. And
I don't know, let's ask her.
She's marketing herself, of course.
Have you ever had a burning desire?
Good question.
My burning desire is to make a difference. I can ride on her pony and don't have to have a whole stable to maintain of my own. That's why I do it.
Psychic income.
Okay, any other questions? We have a couple of minutes here left, and you have Sara Hand here. Doctor.
Yeah.
Hang on. It needs to get recorded.
Again, what was your resource for managing information in the information age? You gave a resource.
Oh, oh my gosh. I think and I'm not sure which resource that you mean. For me, it's really, I live in this world of hanging out with cool people that are thought leaders. So, I have somebody that talks about education 3.0. I'm in this, it's not even a real world. I mean, it's a place of where we're going. So I'm a little spoiled in that. Managing information, I think, is just the same way that you had a storage system for your files is having a digital system that you can store things. And then part of it is this understanding that information is available. How do we move past that fear of I have to look at everything? My partner has this old email, and he's like, it's full, and I'm like, yeah, I scroll through. So put a good subject line on something you're going to send me, because I'm going to roll through it. Yes.
If you're in the beginning stages of trying to hire somebody, and you said you have to take it slow, give them a little bit at a time, how am I going to sift through all the choices of people from Craigslist to Indeed.com to, bringing these people into my meeting, looking at them, asking them a question like you said, what else do you want except money? How do I find that right? Perfect. Do I have to waste a lot of money up front and blow a ton of money and learn my lessons the hard way?
I hope not. You are going to learn, but I think some of it is really defining and get some great feedback. Don't think up your job requirements or your skill requirements all on your own. Get some great feedback, because we tend to get lost in the forest because we can't see the trees. And you think, oh, I want somebody who can do this, and you go, no, that's not really what I want. So get some great feedback to really define the class of what you're looking for before you have anybody come in. And then try somebody, have somebody when you're asking questions. I like, what's your greatest screw up and how did you make it right? Find out if people are okay making small mistakes. When somebody comes in, give them all the tools that they need. And you don't have to advertise everywhere. I mean, that whole thing of use CareerSource Suncoast. Yeah. I mean, it is not just for day labor jobs. I mean, there's jobs, 6-figure jobs that are posted on CareerSource Suncoast. Let them weed through some stuff for you. I mean, yeah, there's some great resources.
Will you be here afterwards for a little bit to
I'll
mingle? A big hand clap.
Yeah. Read the board.
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is always
yes. Thank you so much for coming.